Hey guys, David here and welcome to another video. This is going to be part 1 of my CNC conversion series. If you haven't seen part 0, where I basically give you an overview of what this project is all about, then you can check out the video up in the little eye or link down in the description. But today I'm going to talk to you about the long journey about trying to actually machine some parts on a manual milling machine without any real experience or proper tools at first. So I'm gonna share to you how you can get started with really inexpensive tools and actually get decent parts, parts that are accurate, parts that look okay, and that will in the end work. And at the same time, I'm going to show you how these parts work, how they fit together, and why they are designed this way. So this journey started, must have been half a year ago or even longer. When I first got the milling machine into my basement, I was ready. I started playing around with some scrap pieces of aluminum that I had lying around, and I realized that, wow, all these YouTube videos that I've seen from all these great YouTubers, machinists, they make it look really easy, but it actually is not all that easy at all. But nevertheless, I didn't let myself get discouraged, and I went out, bought all the material that I needed to get this project going to machine all the mounting brackets for the motors and stuff. I was able to get it relatively cheaply, as most of it was scrap metal. That meant though that apart from one piece on all the other ones, I had to machine all the sides all around, since most of them were actually offcuts off of a very thick sheet. So they were 20 millimeters thick, but that was actually just a slice of a really giant plate of aluminum. But that doesn't really matter for my purpose, and I was able to basically buy them at the weight price of aluminum, which is a lot cheaper than buying them at the price for a plate. So I got the parts in, and the ones that I started with, actually at the very first I tried to machine flat one of the cross sections that I got that had just rough saw cut finish on both the front and the back side, and basically an extruded finish on all the other sides. I was not able to fit that piece into my vise, and so I decided, oh well, I got these great strap clamps that I can use to mount this to my table, and I proceeded to get all this stuff out. It took me half an hour or even longer to get the piece nicely clamped down. I installed this face mill that I got off of eBay. It was probably $25 or something with some inserts, and I tried to start working on it, and well, there were chips. All these YouTube videos, when they were using the face mill, it gave this beautiful finish and was nice and flat. But I had all these burrs on it, and it was not very beautiful and definitely not flat. So what I learned, well, what I thought that was the only problem was, oh, my head is not trimmed in, because I had disassembled and reassembled the machine. I completely didn't trim it in or anything, it just basically put it on it looks straight. And so I started using this dial indicator that I got, also really cheaply, though out of all the cheap tools, this is probably one of the most usable ones. It was under $20, I think. I'm gonna try to have the links to at least the good stuff linked down below. So I used this mounted to the side of the spindle thanks to the magnetic base, and trimmed it in on my table, which I was just hoping that would be flat. And I was able to knock it into shape a lot better, and went for the next cut, and it already looked better, but it still looked really ugly. And I had to do quite a lot of surface, but since the way that I clamped it, I was having strap clamps on part of the surface I wanted to machine, I would have to reposition these strap clamps, but I also have a saw cut finish on the bottom, so there would be no way that I could clamp them in exactly the same way and finish the face off. So I basically was discouraged. I gave up for the moment, and looked online and I saw like what are other ways to like face mill something, and then I stumbled upon this tool. This is a fly cutter, and what it basically is one just sharp thing, in this case a piece of just tool steel that is kind of ground to a little bit of like, I don't know, just one tooth I guess, and it just spins around and it cuts pass for pass. It seems like a really crude tool since it is very lopsided, but as it turns out it's actually a lot easier to get cheap. This tool was about the same price as the other face mill, and let me just tell you, now that I know how it works, it gets a lot better finish. But when I first got it, it still didn't look all that rosy. Since this tool steel came only like very roughly ground into place, like it had some sort of a look like it could work, so I used it and like it kind of worked. That's when I was starting to work on these plates. These are just some spaces on the bottom of the machine, so the finish doesn't matter whatsoever. And like, if you look at it, like it kind of works. That like the feel to your hands is really rough, but they are flat, which was a huge progress from the previous tools. And the reason why these were a lot easier to work with was they actually fit into the vise, since they're not as wide as the other ones. That was just a huge improvement. I was able to easily fix them into the vise and get a nice clean result. What I used to get the parallel level is probably my only like proper tool purchase apart from the mill, which is this set of parallels. They're really old, but they look like they once were like really high quality. One of them is missing, but that's not that big of a deal. They were great. They're imperial and I work in metric, but since I only use them to kind of prop up my material in the vise, they work perfectly for that. And they come in this nice wooden box, which just, I'm kind of happy every time I use those. So I was able to get these faces flat. I was really happy, and I drilled the hole and got my first 4 pieces done. This still was quite a few months ago. Then when I came to just chopping them off, I found that doing it on the mill with a tool like an end mill in there, it was taking really long, and slotting on this mill is not fun at all. It chatters like crazy. Some of it is probably that I don't know how to use it properly, but another part is also that the like backlash and stuff and the not so rigid machine build is just not ideal for slotting. So I actually used just a circular saw to cut them off with a wooden blade. I took multiple passes, and while it kind of hurt myself inside, but to use a wooden blade for this, I heard that it is okay to use it on aluminum, and the saw blade wouldn't be that expensive to replace if it got dull. So I was able to cut it off roughly and then finish it off with an end mill, which worked out great. And then I was like, the pieces that I need to create all these motor mounts, they all fit inside the vise. It's just that my raw material doesn't fit. Why did I try to like machine it flat before I cut the shape? So after that realization, I cut out the rough shape for all the motor mounts that I needed, and after that I of course first had to machine the sides flat, but I just clamp it in the vise and use the fly cutter again to get them nice and flat. And by that time I also got myself just like a bench grinder where I could actually regrind the edges of this to get it a little bit closer to the shape that it should be, which by that point I actually managed to Google and like think ahead and grind it into the kind of the shape that I wanted. Of course, I also once again got the cheapest tool, so the bench grinder had like kind of wobbliness to it, so it wasn't ideal. But it got the job done and the surface finish improved dramatically. It was actually flat to the touch now, and it had some shiny parts in there, like even starting to look like a mirror finish in some like very small parts. And while I would have been really happy to get them finished even better, which I believe that if you like get this tool properly sharpened and have a good machine, then you can probably get a really nice finish as well. But I was happy with the finish as I got now. It was flat, nice to the touch. So I flattened off all these pieces and started cutting in the holes. Just drilling them like I would on a drill press, just with a little bit more precision, being able to move around. I still knocked them by hand though. And the pattern worked out pretty nicely. I was able to use all the measurements of my 3D model that I made previously, which is a great help. And now we're coming to what happened just like a couple of weeks ago. I was able to assemble my first assembly. That was just such a satisfying feeling. It's this assembly of 3 plates that are just bolted together quite crudely, but the plates are just there to like create a distance for the motor, which is mounted to this plate, which this plate is going to be mounted to the cast frame. And this just creates the distance where I have the coupler and the bearing housing for the ball screw here. And like, I cut all the holes, I recessed the screws, and I put in all the stuff that I needed and put the bolts in, and they actually fit, and it actually lined up. I just worked to the dimensions that I had on the CAD model before, and in the end it actually did work out. And when I mounted the motor to it, it actually did fit, and it looks like a proper assembly. That was just like such a great moment for me, and I got a lot of confidence in this project back from this. Now I also finished off the Y-axis plate, which is quite similar. That was actually the only one that I had to like actually buy plate material, so I didn't have to finish that off. I just had to drill holes and like cut off the sides at an angle so it looks better, since that material is not really needed. I still am missing some little distance pieces here that I have to turn down on a lathe. I'm gonna do that in a couple days probably, and they're gonna go in between the motor and this plate, and then be able to mount this more thoroughly to it. The reason why I couldn't do that on the Y mount is because I had to have it flat here, so I couldn't actually get the screws to kind of line up, because this being flat allows the table to come forwards more and gives me more travel in the Y-axis. So we are pretty much up to current time again now, and the easy parts are done. Like all the easy plates, they're done, I was able to machine them just to my specifications from the CAD model that I was very easily being based off of the machine, since all these measurements are easily accessible from the outside. Now comes the difficult part though. I need to mount the nut from the ball screw here to the machine. And what is inside the machine right now is a very different nut that has a very different mounting mechanism. And I was able to kind of like feel my way around, like put a flashlight and a phone in there to take some pictures and figure out how it is done. And it is not done how these mounting brackets that came with the ball screws are done at all. So this is the solution I settled on for now. I'm just drilled some holes through here, but first I had to like make this flat spot so that the bolt head would have something to sit on, since it obviously can't sit on this corner. I just used a 10mm end mill for this. Now the way I used it is not ideal. Also coated end mills are not ideal for aluminum, but it was the only 10mm I had, and it worked out quite well. I then used the spot drill to make sure that I get a nicely centered hole and drill the 5mm hole all the way through. That's gonna allow me to use some nice long 5mm bolts to secure this from either this side, or if I change my mind I can still use the old ones on the bottom here from the other side. Now initially I thought I was gonna have the screw head down here somewhere so I don't have to buy new bolts, but while making them I thought like, what the heck, it's gonna be stronger this way, since it will be really weak around here where it's gonna be really thin, and I can just like buy longer bolts. That's not a big deal. So I now got some of these pieces made on the lathe, just a simple M8 thread here and 6 thread in here, and I have M8 threads in here, so these pieces then go in here. To form the distance for the motor, and the motor then gets mounted on top of there. Since the assembly is only temporary, I'm gonna leave it just 2 bolts properly in there, as I'm probably gonna have to take it apart again. But on this side I can now fit in the bearing block for the lead screw, where the lead screw then is gonna come in here and be coupled with the motor shaft here. I don't have the proper bolts for these yet. I ordered them but they haven't arrived, so I'm just using some like random bolts that somewhat fit to put it in place and just kind of see how the whole thing looks put together. And that is the X-axis motor assembly. For the Z-axis the assembly is pretty similar. This is the top plate from the Z-axis column of the machine. It bolts down with these screws here, and right now there's just a bearing in here which supports the lead screw that's in there right now, but I will be replacing that also with a bearing block that has the proper bearings in it, so it fits properly, and that just mounts on top of here. In the end, when I actually mount this to the machine, I will take out this bearing since it's in the way, but right now I will have to reassemble the machine again, but I still need this bearing, so I'm just gonna leave it in here for now. This mounts on here, and then here once again for the motor, the 4 support structures in the corners. Alright, so that is the Z-axis assembly. As you can see, very similar. Just gonna come through here, be coupled here with one of these couplers, and then that is for the Z-axis. So with that, we have all the 3 axes, the motor mounts complete, and also the screw mounts. That is quite a thing done. These were relatively complicated to make, especially since I don't have that much experience and the equipment is not ideal yet. But they turned out quite alright. I was pleasantly surprised how well everything fit together. All the holes lined up and everything. And so I guess that is a big plus. Also the nut holders here, they have the holes now from the top as well. I added those so that I will be able to mount them more easily. Now I will probably have to disassemble and reassemble this a whole bunch of times. That's why I didn't like fasten everything and put the couplers in and everything. But I think this is a good point to stop this video. Make sure that you are subscribed so you don't miss the future ones. Also, please click that bell icon so you get notified right away when the next one comes out. You can also follow me on social media, linked down below. Check out all the good links to the stuff that I featured in this video. So this is it. Thanks for watching and until next time.